Order. The Mayor.
Good evening, everyone. Sit down, please. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming for the council meeting at on the 22nd of June at 6:30. Firstly, yet again, we're suffering the loss of yet another ex-borough councillor, and for many years a town councillor, ex-councillor Martin Davis. If anyone would like to say anything after we give a minute's silence, if you don't mind. So if we could do a minute's silence from now. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. If anyone would like to say anything about ex-councillor Martin Davis? No one? Councillor Clues?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I first met former councillor Martin Davis at a council meeting that me and the councillor sitting below me went to, because we didn't agree with what the council had done. And we attended every meeting for 12 months, along with Councillor Davis and the late Councillor Chambers. They said to me, "You're better on the inside than you are on the outside." At that time, I wasn't interested in politics at all. I went on to do something for my community. And along that way, for probably 2 years, I sat there and hopefully I've done some work. I became a Addiston town mayor as an independent. But then talking to Martin, he kind of led me on the way to start being interested in politics, but not in the way where he was against anything that anybody else ever said, because Martin was a pure gentleman. And when he stood up and he spoke with integrity. I have never heard that man call another councillor. I've never heard him swear. The only thing he ever done was for his community, and it's a great loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clues. Anybody else like to say anything? Councillor Humphries.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew Martin for quite a short time, really, but I echo what Councillor Clues has said. He was a gentleman in every shape and form. It was tragic that his chair, when he was in mayorship, when he was collecting for his charity, he collected for dementia. Sorry, I'm going to get upset, but one of the things he actually died from was his dementia diagnosis. And I helped him through the pandemic with that diagnosis. And even in his worst time, he was still a gentleman. In his lucid times, he would actually look at me and say, "Marion, what is going on?" And I used to say to him, instead of going through your brain, just think of your light bulbs, some working, some not. And he stood by that. And he was a gentleman through and through. Our thoughts go out to Jill. at this time. And I think we need to remember that because she done a lot for the council as well.
Yeah.
And we were with Martin right to the end, and he was a gentleman. And our thoughts go with all of everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Humphries. Councillor David Humphries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to just say a few words. He did tell a few untruths, you know, because he said to me in 2010, why don't you think about becoming a councillor? Only take a couple of hours a week. That's a lie, isn't it? Straight away, bless him. Anyway, and as we all know, if you get into it, it's good fun. Martin, as you say, was a gentleman. And I always describe Martin. He was definitely like an iceberg. You know, it was this little bit on the top and everything else going underneath. He was actually the chair of Addiston Conservative Association for over 20 years. Through the bad times, when you lot run everything. You still turn up every week. Let's go for them, let's go after, let's get some money together, let's keep going. And he goes back to the days of 6 or 7 councillors. So he was tenacious, he's very, very quiet, very, very unassuming, and just got on with it. Methodical, no panic, and a bit of an untruth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Mr. Hayden, would you like to say anything? No? Oh, yeah. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as everyone has said, Martin Davies truly was a gentleman. He was very quiet and unassuming in his own way. But with Martin, it was definitely a question more of what he did rather than what you heard him say. He got on with stuff. And it's terribly sad when people pass, and I cannot help but feel for his wife. But councillors, everyone has a bright side too, and I remember as much as anything his sense of humour and his ability to take life at face value and to see the good. He had to see the good because one of the things I always think is quite unfair is when someone is elected to your office, Mr. Mayor, you get to hear all of their names, however much they would wish to keep them quiet. And at the end of it, just to show his sense of humour, I had to say, nice one, Cyril, which I picked up that his middle name was Cyril, and I didn't really let him forget that for a year. But he always took things in good humour and showed the world a very human face. And I'll certainly miss him.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, we'll continue with the evening. It's just to advise members that, if you're aware, a motion has been submitted since the agenda has been published in accordance with the papers in front of us. And we'll deal with that on item 13A. Okay. Okay. So item 1 on the agenda is the evacuation procedure. There is a location plan of the exits and assembly point situated on the doors of this room. Please familiarise yourself with it. On discovering a fire, please carry out the following: sound the alarm, attack the fire if possible and safe to do so using appliances provided. On hearing the evacuation signal, please carry out the following: exit the building by your nearest safest exit. All visitors report to Assembly Point G. All staff report to the designated assembly point on Woolpack Way car park. Do not leave the assembly point for any reason until told to do so by the incident controller or the fire brigade officer. Okay, I've got apologies for absence. I have Councillor Dervix, Councillor MacDonald, Councillor Singh, and Councillor Lead-Smith.
Can we add Councillor Mawson?
Councillor Mawson, okay. Are they to be noted? Okay, thank you. Item 3, declaration of personal and prejudicial interest. Any? No. Item 4, the Mayor to move in accordance with Standing Order number 6.1. that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 4th of May 2022 to be approved as a correct record.
Second.
All those in favour? Okay, to receive the mayor's announcements. During the past month, with a couple of months, I was invited to the Jubilee Committee and at Atherstone, and also the Jubilee celebrations in Coleshill. I just want to give a big thanks to all the people involved in the Jubilee, whoever was all the volunteers, because I know a lot of work went into it over the 4 days, both here and in Coleshill, of which I was invited to. Unfortunately, I can't speak for anywhere else that held them, because I can't speak for those, obviously, because I wasn't there. But I take my hat off for a 4-day event, which went brilliantly. Also, I'd like to thank Councillor Dan Hancock who invited me to the Soccer Aid that he held, which was organised with him and his volunteers. Obviously, it wouldn't have been done without your help and the volunteers, and the children I know did brilliantly, even and they won as well, didn't they? So hats off to those. And also, I'd like to remind everyone I have a quiz on the 7th of July. Please support if you can. Okay. And that's that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to item number 6, to answer questions from members of the public and pursuant of standing orders. And I believe we have none at the moment.
That's right, Mr.
Okay, so I'll move on to item number 7. The Planning and Development Board held on the 9th of May and the 6th of June, pages 513.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the minutes of the Planning and Development Board meeting held on the 9th of May and 6th of June be received.
You have a seconder, Councillor Hayfield. So on page 5. Right. Page 6, page 7, page 8, and the 6th of June, page 9, page 10, page 11. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whilst I'm recognising it was a difficult decision for the planning board to take, I'm referring to the application for the solar farm in Astley. I'm disappointed with the decision of the planning board to recommend to the Secretary of State that we are minded to approve. The residents, of which there were many, have written in to object. I supported their objections, and I have to say I disagree with the principle of solar farms in their entirety. They are inefficient and they have serious, not whilst having serious detrimental impact on the green belt, they are not as efficient and as green as they portray. For instance, when asked an expert that came to one of the parish council meetings I attended to discuss this application, I asked a specific question. What, if any, calculation is done to calculate the emissions generated from the production of the components to a solar farm? And he said there are no calculations done. And I said, in his opinion then, it's a yes or no answer. Would the emissions generated in the production of those aforementioned components outweigh the emissions saved once these solar farms are installed? And he said, yes. Therefore, as I say, the whole policy of solar farms, the whole policy of solar panels is flawed. And it's my belief that we should disagree and oppose on principle. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm genuinely, I'm thinking of the right word. I understand entirely what the leader of the council is saying. And I certainly understand that a lot of residents will be disappointed with these two decisions. One of the great difficulties in planning is quite often you may wish to do something, but you've got to find what are known as planning reasons. And I absolutely understand that a lot of people don't like the impact or the cause or the effect of an awful lot of things that we have to decide. No one, for example, likes having a wind farm next door. No one particularly likes having a housing estate next door. No one likes a telephone mast next door. But these things have to happen in a modern society. They have to go somewhere. The board was faced with an almost impossible decision on these two applications. In that government policy is absolutely towards a green agenda, towards developing these new sources of energy. And at the same time, this was in the Greenbelt. Two applications that we actually would really, rather, if they're going to happen, they'd happen outside of the Greenbelt. So I completely understand residents' concerns and your concerns, Councillor. And to be fair, these were not straightforward decisions. The board was not, this was one of the very few occasions where our planning board has not voted unanimously. In the majority of applications, we tend to find there is cross-party support. And I think on both of these, it wasn't necessarily a party vote at all. Members were struggling with difficult decisions. So whilst, I understand exactly what you're saying and exactly why you're saying it, I think there are members of the board that were saying the same as you, that had the same concerns. And I wish, to be honest with you, that it were possible for us to, as a principle, have a list of things that we were not going to vote for. My word, my personal list would be extremely long. I just hope that perhaps we can all work together to convince government that some of these things are better sited in specific locations, away from people's homes to an extent, and to actually have a more coherent government policy. This is now down in the hands of the Secretary of State, and I hope that they will take an enlightened view.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Okay, continuing on then, page 12, page 13, and Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I beg to move that the minutes of the Planning and Development Board meetings held on the 9th of May and 6th of June now be adopted. And I suppose I should say, and to make the necessary orders thereon.
Okay. So can I have a seconder? All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, so we move on to item number 8, special subgroup.
Mr. Mayor, I beg to move that the minutes of the special subgroup held on the 10th of May be received.
Seconder?
Second.
Right. And that's obviously just one page, page 14.
Mr. Mayor, I beg to move that the minutes of the special subgroup held on the 10th of May be adopted.
Seconder again. Right. All those in favour? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, to receive and consider minutes of the local development subcommittee. Mainly.
So, I'd like to move that the minutes of the local development subcommittee,
To the mouthful, isn't it?
local development framework subcommittee, met on the 25th of April and the 23rd of May be received.
That's page 15, page 16. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's not often that I'll
I've just seen that, yes. Yes, it's just page 15.
Oh, no, he's absolutely right. It's in the board.
Yes.
But it's on item number 7, Mr. Mayor, the presentation of the master plan framework for site H4. Mr. Mayor, I have to say, I was absolutely impressed by the quality of the work that the communities of Polesworth and Dordon had done in bringing forward their comments on the master plan framework for this particular site. This is another one of those applications which is not universally popular, which is not, everyone's idea of the best use of land and the best way to proceed. But the people who have engaged from the community in trying to develop a master plan framework have done so, in my view, in a completely professional and thorough way, and all credit to them. I'm not trying to imply in that other people who've looked at other master plans and other neighbourhood plans have not done so with equal diligence and competency. Merely that on this occasion I was blown away by the effort that had gone in and the sheer determination to get the best for their communities from these groups. And it's really, really impressive.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson.
Councillor Knight, actually, that's something else.
Councillor Parsons.
Is it the same issue?
Yes. Yes, can I just support what Councillor Simpson said, actually. Polesworth Parish Council has begun to work very closely with Dordon because H4 actually crosses the boundaries of both communities. And in Polesworth, we are very much in support of what Dordon has said. I think the effort that's been put in there has been exemplary, and we hope that this situation can be resolved effectively. As Councillor Simpson said, we've heard of one area that doesn't like the actual, the solar farms in Polesworth and Dordon. We're not actually hugely happy about the large amount of housing that we're receiving, and that that won't change, as it were. But yes, a big effort has been made here. Our green spaces are being eroded here, but we're trying to make the best of it, and we're trying to actually work together to make the best of it. And I think actually Dordon Parish Council should indeed be praised and supported for the work they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the minutes of the local development framework subcommittee received and adopted.
Okay. Can we all those in favour? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 10, minutes of the Community Environment Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the minutes of the Community Environment Board of the 16th of May be received.
Seconder. Councillor Humphrey, seconded. Page 18, page 19, and page 20. Oh, sorry. Okay. Councillor Parker.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank all those involved in the Haunchwood energy workshops development. There's going to be a release of funding, I believe, from Sports England to improve the facilities there, to make it usable by both genders, to make it usable for football all year round and cricket, and it's going to be a good addition into the area. I also believe that it was a hard decision to come by because it's taking the sports away from Ali. But I think in a greater perspective, it's a good decision that's been made.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Anybody else? No.
Councillor Bell to respond.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Councillor Parker. Yes, absolutely. You say there's a real opportunity here, and very pleased that we've all been able to come to agree to it. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. We have those all in favour?
I think you're on page 20.
Oh, I haven't got to 20, have I? I do apologise. 20. Sorry, I thought I got to the end. So, 20. Right. Okay. Carry on now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the minutes of the Community Environment Board, 16th of May, be adopted.
All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 11. Minutes of the Executive Board held on 13th of June, which includes A, B, C and D.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the minutes of the Executive Board held on 13th of June of this year be received.
That's
That's it.
21A and 21B. That's right. Right.
Okay, can I just note the adoption of Ward Broughton's neighbourhood plan? An excellent piece of work by volunteers across the village. And I very much echo Councillor Simpson's comments about the importance of local communities being involved in neighbourhood planning. I think this is only the 5th or the 6th neighbourhood plan that's been adopted and completely done by volunteers. So some excellent work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Riley. So that's
Councillor Wright.
Councillor Ryan. Right, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I now move that the minutes of the Executive Board held on the 13th of June of this year be adopted.
All those in favour?
Is that so?
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 12, to receive and consider the minutes and notice of the Resources Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the minutes of the Resources Board held on 20th of June this week be received.
Second.
Second. Okay, Councillor Wright, second. 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm not.
We are?
It's page 22, sorry. Not,
Oh, I do apologise.
22A, 22B, 22.
I've got you. Right. Part of Treasury report. I do apologise. Right. 22A should have written. What on there? 22B, 22C.
Mr. Mayor. On item number 9, Mr. Mayor, I'm only really going to say some of the things that I said at the board meeting earlier this week. Again, perhaps my age is becoming part of the things I should become accustomed to repeating myself. But I think the work of the Housing Task and Finish Group has been exemplary. It's a difficult job. There's no doubt this is a difficult job. But when I read through the comments that all the members have put into the lettings scheme, it was clear that they'd taken on a difficult job with an awful lot of work in a very positive way. And the changes that were printed for us all to read, I think, are insightful and will certainly help people who are in a vulnerable condition in our society, who are acutely in need of housing, to find their way more easily through the regulations and all of the arrangements that need to be gone through. I think this is a difficult job that has been handled well by this Task and Finish group, and they've come to something which is very sensible and measured and is worthy of support. And genuinely, I know at the board we're all appreciative of the work they've done, but I think that's worthy of a broader hearing because there's certainly a lot of effort gone into getting this right, and they've done something which is a credit to the authority.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Sen.
Thank you, Mark. It's really nice that you've said that, and I know we talked a little bit about that on Monday, but I just wanted to use this forum again to sort of recognise the work of Councillor Barry Lees, who, alongside Councillor Clues, was around the inception of this committee itself, and hopefully Councillor Clues will take on that chair that he started. But she stepped into the breach a few times through his absence, sadly. And but we just wanted to recognise Councillor Barry Clues once again because he's put a huge amount of work into this committee.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. So 22. Oh, sorry. Councillor Clues.
Mr. Mayor, thank you to Councillor Simpson and also Councillor Simmons for those thanks. I'd just like to say that the House and Taxicum Finish group, it's on both sides, and I think we really get on well. We've talked to each other. We know what we're trying to achieve. So I think it's all of that group that we're working hard together to try and change some things for our residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clues. So I believe we've still got 22D. Okay. And okay, Councillor Simmons.
I move that the minutes of the Resources Board meeting held on 20th of June be adopted.
Second. Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. Moving on to item 13. To authorise the Chief Executive in accordance with Article 1105 of the Articles of the Constitution to sign and seal on behalf of the Council any orders, deeds and documents necessary to give effect to any resolution of the Council, including any passed during part of the meeting which is held in private. Move. We don't just 13. Yeah. That was 13. Now going to 13A.
Yeah, move.
Second. All those in favour?
Mr. Mayor, are we still broadcasting?
We are at the minute, yes. Yeah. Okay, I would now invite Councillor Gosling to speak on the notice of motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion brought before you today from the Labour Group is put forward again with hopefully cross-party support, something that we feel in the spirit of cooperation that we can all get behind to help every resident across the borough. The motion that we're presenting is that this council recognises the serious impact which the cost of living crisis is having on the well-being and quality of life of many of our residents, and in which especially our lower income families. In order to respond to this crisis, we propose that the Borough Council establish an all-party working group and to convene a multi-agency conference to examine what steps can be taken to help residents, to coordinate our approach and to prevent harm to our most vulnerable residents. We must all be painfully aware of the challenges that are facing our residents at the moment, as food prices, fuel and energy spiral ever upwards against a backdrop of national insurance increases and now interest rate rises. With further fuel increases due in October, 40%, the picture ahead is a very bleak Christmas for many of our residents. We have already discussed in this chamber the shocking statistics that 1 in 5 of our children are in poverty. We've already discussed on a number of occasions our ageing population. With that ageing population comes a fixed income, many of which have paid in over their lifetime and is becoming further and further stretched. each time the petrol jumps another 20 pence a litre like last Monday. The just about managings are no longer muddling through. And as the pinch tightens, the downward spiral begins. People borrow money to cover today, escalating costs, debts, interest payments, missed payments, charges, and very quickly you have a very complex financial situation, which our officers tell us takes hours, weeks, potentially months to unpick and get back on track. Some of those missed payments, around £55,000 from non-council tenants alone in council tax of this council. Some of those missed payments, it's just to this council alone. Helping these people carries real benefits for this council. Missed payments are currently one of our best tools for identifying the people in most trouble. But by then, of course, it's already too late. And they're already in trouble. Months of stress, months of missed payments, months of mounting charges and damage to mental health and well-being that could have all been avoided with an early, timely intervention. Our financial inclusion officers have unpicked 170 cases and more in our housing teams. They've transformed lives and brightened futures, and they deserve a huge thanks for their tireless efforts. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, and there are many more slipping through the net. But our motion is not brought forward just to moan. It's a call to action to build resilience in our communities, a call to action to brighten even more futures, a call to action to invest in our residents before the worst hits, a call to action to stop our residents having to make horrendous choices between heat and food. It's a call to action to protect our children's families and the disadvantaged and our elderly. It's a call for action to save Christmas for thousands of our residents. In March 2020, this council mobilised in an unprecedented way to climb a mountain of challenges to ensure that residents were supported and had access to all the essentials that they needed. The council phoned every vulnerable resident on every list we hold and discussed with them how to signpost them to get them the support they needed to get through the worst of the crisis. Not only that, but we mobilised our communities. We drew on board through leadership in our communities and mobilised our communities to make sure that we delivered food parcels and we helped thousands of people to survive the worst of the pandemic. We can do that again. There's an estimated £15 billion in unclaimed support, money which has been allocated to meet the challenges people are facing, which is not being accessed. All we need to do is remove the barriers and we will make those lives better. An estimated 7 million people across the UK are not accessing the support, a tenth of the UK population. On a local level, that would equate to around 6,000 people. But we know we have a bigger challenge than that. We know that our areas like Atherstone Central, Hartshill, my wonderful Arley, are all below any national average on those statistics, especially on household income. They are the most financially vulnerable. They are in the most financially vulnerable positions of the whole country. 10,000 people potentially not maximising their incomes would, with a small c, be a conservative estimate. So the barriers, how do we build the magic thread of resilience? How do we protect more than 10,000 of our residents from the crisis and poverty? There is a raft, a smorgasbord of support packages. It's truly mind-blowing. Pages and pages and pages of links to websites, of helplines, of social media pop-ups, pages and pages. I'm overwhelmed, though, just considering the 22-page notes and the 28-page application form for the pension credits form. This is essential because this then gives our residents access to fuel vouchers, winter fuel allowance, council tax benefit, potentially saving thousands of pensioners. Attendance allowance is worth nearly £5,000 a year. £5,000 would even pay my electricity bills. Does anybody know who's entitled? Go for it. Yep, one person. Fantastic. Anybody who requires care, anybody who is struggling to meet the needs, who is over the age of 65, they don't have to have. Sorry. If you don't qualify, you don't even need a carer to qualify. You don't need to be tested, and it's even a tax-free. The barrier is a whopping 30-page form. Estimates from professionals tell me it takes between 2 and 8 hours to complete these forms. But this is a barrier that we can remove. We can remove the barriers that mean 98% of our residents are entitled to social energy tariffs that they don't claim. We can make sure that out of the 850,000 pensioners in the UK entitled to pension credits, that none of them live here. Before this session, I read thousands upon thousands of pages, report after report, of how many hours of officer time, how much investment, social media campaigns, CAB, charity funding, still literally thousands of hours, thousands of pounds that have gone into generating these reports, and they're still failing to reach the people that we need to reach. This motion costs nothing. It may even generate income for this council by avoiding the complex cases and by giving the household the ability to make their own way. It is an opportunity to invest in the lives of tens of thousands of our residents, to strategically, efficiently, compassionately focus on coordinate our efforts, to bring in partners to maximise incomes and to magnify the efforts of our councillors, of our officers and our councillors. We can mobilise ourselves, we can mobilise our communities to stop the bleak outcomes and to save lives, livelihoods and futures, and of course, save Christmas. We can avert this crisis, and what we have to do is now. We presented this motion a week ago as a cross-party motion, and I asked for support on this from your leader and from Margaret Bell, who is the leader of the Community Environment Board. We have had no comment up until now, so I ask again for your commitment by inviting anybody from the other side of the House to second this motion. We can climb this motion, but we can only do it together, and we need to help to do this. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barton. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Chambers? Okay.
Councillor Clues is.
Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know.
So, sorry, can I just be clear? Second,
Right,
Councillor
Chambers.
And so Councillor Chambers must be offered the chance to speak now or to speak later before you go on to anybody else. I do apologise.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I thought Councillor Clues was taking up the request by our leader to formally second this motion.
I was, just to formally second the motion. But,
you may answer your hand.
In which case I will stand down my request to second the motion if that is what Councillor Clues is suggesting she's going to do.
Are you seconding it, Councillor Clues?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Right.
In which case, Councillor Clues now has the chance to speak or speak later.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may not go down very well, but I couldn't consciously sit here tonight and not support this with the volunteer work that you all know that I do. And basically, that is why I am supporting this motion. Hopefully, this motion isn't going to cost any money, because that would be not much sense if it's going to cost money when we're trying to find money for our residents. But basically, this is nothing to do with my side. And hopefully my side understand where I'm coming from. But again, I can't volunteer the hours I do, and the more people that are coming through the doors where I volunteer, I can conscientiously not support this tonight, else I would walk. Thank you. Thank you, fellow councillors.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, actually, I support the spirit of this motion, and indeed the timeliness of it. I think it's really good. The only thing that I would say is that there's a great deal of work, as actually Councillor Gosling has recognised, already going on with our officers and our partners and our members, indeed, towards this issue, which we all recognise. And I'm going to propose an amendment, hopefully a friendly amendment, to that, so that that recognition is there within the motion. So I'll just read it out. Sorry, I'll do it slowly so you can hear. This council recognises the good work being undertaken by North Warwickshire Borough Council and its partners in respect of the increased cost of living and its impact on the well-being and quality of life for many of our residents, and in particular our lower income households. In order to respond to this crisis, we propose that the Borough Council establish an all-party information session which sets out the work currently being undertaken and seeks ideas on what more can be done. I think it's really, that's the notion, I think it's really important that we build on what's already happening and that we also recognise what's within our control to build, to do more. I'm sure there's more we can do and we can identify it. So I'd like to propose that motion, Mr. Mayor, sorry, the amendment motion.
Okay, can I have a seconder to
I'll
that?
second that. Reserve my right, councillor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, can I propose that we have a short few minutes to discuss
Certainly,
this
yeah.
within our group?
Okay, so,
Do you want to set an upper limit for that?
5 minutes.
just 5 minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yeah, get it. Say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to wait for to get back into session and recording. Okay. Okay.
I keep apologies members for speaking, but so what's been agreed is that in effect the first paragraph of the amendment be accepted as a friendly amendment, but the existing wording of the motion in the second paragraph, other than reference to a multi-agency meeting. So just for absolute clarity, the motion would be: this council recognises the good work being undertaken by North Warwickshire Council and its partners with respect to the increased cost of living and its impact on the well-being and quality of life for many of our residents, and in particular our low-income households. In order to respond to this crisis, we propose that the Borough Council establish an all-party working group and convene a multi-agency meeting to examine what steps can be taken to help residents to coordinate our approach and prevent harm to the most vulnerable residents. If that's acceptable, then you're back in the debate.
Okay. Councillor Deacon.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, in the cross-party spirit of this motion, and with complete genuinity, say thank you to Councillor Denise Clues. I and many people in this chamber know how difficult it can be sometimes when you have disagreements within your party, and I have had much support from people in this room on both sides of the chamber when I have had difficulties in the party. So I do appreciate that sometimes it is very difficult, putting aside the politics of those disagreements. And I'd just like to say thank you to Councillor Denise Clues for the work that she mentioned that she does within her community. Secondly, continuing with the cross-party spirit, thank you to the Conservative group for being so flexible with the motion and the amendment. Because whilst we obviously believed full-heartedly in our original motion, keeping within that cross-party spirit, I think that we have come to a very appropriate compromise between the two groups. So thank you to the Conservative group on that. I think that we do have to recognise that there is an awful situation for our residents here, and the people that we see regularly in our lives. And I think that we all know someone in this room, all of us in this room know someone outside of this chamber who is struggling incredibly with the cost of living. And unfortunately, we are in this situation where it perhaps will not get any better in the short term. Inflation is currently at its highest level for decades, and that is making life incredibly cruel and incredibly hard for thousands of people. We have to sometimes, and I'm usually not the person to say this, put our party politics aside and the national picture aside to focus solely on the people that we are here for. And I hope that we can all do that in good faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon. Would anyone else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm obviously seconding as it turns out, our friendly amendment. The first thing I'd like to do is respond to Councillor Deacon's comments about Mrs. Clues. We are harmonious. There is no disagreement in our group. It's a credit to Councillor Clues. She is not very well, so she didn't come to our group meeting when we discussed our friendly amendment. and it's a credit to Councillor Clews for being here at the meeting, as I say, for illness. So thank you, Councillor Clews, but I can assure you, we are harmonious in our group, as ever. The reason we put this friendly amendment together is because, as well, Councillor Gosling referred a little bit to what this council is already doing, but there is loads we are currently doing. For instance, I think it was Councillor Gosling, you said we helped 170 residents in the year 21-22.
They were only the non-council tenants.
Absolutely. So we are working with our tenants and providing advice on maximising income, money and debt management, general advice, including regular outreach work in our towns and villages. And of course, we had a jobs fair in Addiston last month. So in addition to our tenants, with some of our residents, 170, the vast majority, 156 of them were after our intervention and our help, received either additional benefits or extra income that's available from external partners. And we also prevented 2 imminent evictions. There's also a good deal of work going on through the Financial Inclusion Partnership, and that's with reference to the multi-agency work. That Financial Inclusion Partnership is us, the County Council, the Citizens Advice Bureau, Department of Work and Pensions, etc. And that partnership has 4 work themes, which is all around helping these the vulnerable people in our society. So some of the examples of that partnership work: Warm and Well Warwickshire, funded by the County Council, provides assistance and advice on heating and energy matters. The Fuel Bank Foundation, we can provide fuel vouchers for people in acute need. Fuel Emergency Fund, funded by North Warwickshire Borough Council. The Discretionary Housing Fund and Customer Referral Process process for help at the food bank. The eligibility criteria for which have been updated to reflect the recent rises of cost of living. There are a number of sources of help with regard to food: cooked meal for older residents delivered for £5, Friday food bags, a social supermarket, community pantry in Arley, and the community fridge in Addiston. We also work very closely with the County Council on household support programme funded by the government, and which has recently been extended, which helps to promote free school meals and have a scheme aimed at supporting those who have been particularly affected financially by the COVID pandemic. And our leisure services, as part of the first poverty proofing pilot in the county, looking at adjustments that we might make to make their services or our services more financially inclusive. And finally, obviously, one of the other things we've done is spent a considerable amount of work taking place to administer the £150 energy rebate, which has been paid through the council tax system, obviously provided by the government. So that's just, a snapshot of what we are already doing. So that's why our friendly amendment wanted to reflect and update council on what we are already doing.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Parsons or Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, I think she was before.
Okay, so I did see you, Councillor Chambers. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say I'm very pleased and delighted that we've now got a cross-chamber commitment to taking this forward and looking at what we're currently doing as a council to help and work in partnership to help our residents address the cost of living crisis. And it is quite true that there is a huge amount of work going on. Indeed, when we asked, can you just quickly list all the things that we are already doing, and we had a 2-page list, which was for me, quite a revelation in terms of the number of things that are there. I think the problem is that, our residents and indeed our council has emerged from the pandemic exhausted, fewer reserves, and less money. And in terms of the Financial Conduct Authority's report, they estimate that there are now around 14 million people who have what they now describe as low financial resilience. That means to say they have fewer savings and more debt in the form of loans, defaulting on debts and relying on credit. So I think, you know, the team that we've got, as everyone has said, is working really hard and flat out, and we don't have many of those, but we are in a completely different context, I think now, not only because of the legacy of the pandemic, but also because of this huge rise in inflation that, as we know from today's announcement, is now running at about 9.1%. And that the Bank of England is also warning us that it will reach 11% this year. So this motion and our debate of it, and indeed the commitment through this motion to carry this forward, is not only, as Councillor Bell said, timely and appropriate, but it's also very important. And I think we just need to, although there is a lot going on, not be too complacent about how well it is reaching the people that are now struggling. I mean, this council has supported and done a huge amount of work on Edible Links to support the charitable food aid help that we give to people. And that's really important. But if you talk to your local food bank, as I did this Monday, about how things are going, they are really struggling. In Dordon, for example, the number of people coming through the door for help has tripled in the last 4 months. They are saying that the kind of people that are coming through the door are very different to the ones that were using it before. They are working people who are literally finding that 3 weeks in, that last week of their wages just won't stretch to cover the costs of their daily living and to provide food and heating and energy for their families. And people are coming through the door in panics because they've just seen their electricity bill double in price, and they are very fearful, and they're looking for reassurance as well as a quick top up. And yet these food banks are also finding that they have no certainty about their own security in terms of funding. They are struggling to find grants, and some of the supermarkets have indeed pulled out of the support that they were giving in the past. So there's a big issue around food aid and food security. And if you look at some of the comments that are being made about this growing dependency on food aid, those that work in that sector are saying, actually, we mustn't go on feeding this dependency. What we need is to adopt a very different approach. Those things are important, but what we need is a cash-first approach so we can actually start to realise the financial entitlements and the benefits that people can draw on and are now very much on offer from both, the government and from the local services that they can find. So I think we need a shift in approach. I'm not saying we shouldn't carry on and keep on supporting the charitable food aid sector. That's really crucial. But we do need, as other authorities are recognising, to shift towards a cash first as a way of helping people with their food and other needs in terms of the cost of living. And to give some examples of the kinds of things that other councils are doing, Scotland and 70 authorities are producing leaflets called, the title is Worried About Money. And this leaflet takes you through actually understanding the nature of your financial problem, and it roots you into the kind of help, very specific, very local, and as well as and it's hard copy stuff. And one of the issues I think we have as a council is that most of the advice and support that we can give, in terms of accessing it at least, not when you finally get through, is all online. And there are many, many hundreds, if not thousands of people, pensioners, working people, who simply don't understand, don't even realise that we have a website, let alone what lies behind some of those areas on our website that point to where you can go for tangible help. Swindon Council, the leader of their council, has issued and joined forces with Citizens Advice and Crosslight to run a joint campaign with 16-point checklist to help residents tackle their cost of living crisis. And they're also doing a survey to actually understand what the impact of this cost of living crisis is having in different areas, because it is different in different areas. And I think, I hope that in terms of us all committing to this notion, that there is a real genuine sense that we do need to do more. It may be that we don't need to provide more resources, and that all we need to do is provide the leadership and the coordination and ensure that the collaboration of the many organisations that are out there, the money charities, the food sector and the food banks and citizens' advice and so on, that we can help bring that together and actually develop a more strategic approach, which is coordinated and where we are clearly in the driving seat as providing the leadership that needs to be done to ensure that we can respond. I don't think any of us are under illusions that we are going to, as a local council, bring this crisis under any degree of control, but we can at least do as much as we can to reduce the distress and reduce the impact of this crisis on our residents. And as the Joseph Rowntree Foundation said, these allowances and financial assistance and benefits that are there for the taking, but which are not taken up, they are real routes out for many people of the crisis that they find them in, and at least can get us through, hopefully, the next 6 to 12 months in terms of feeling that they are supported and not experiencing the distress which they currently are. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Day? Oh, sorry, Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair.
Then
I'll try and be brief. First of all, I'd really like to welcome everything that's been said tonight, because I think what's been said is very good. It is right to acknowledge what is being done, and that is important. The big problem about this crisis is that we don't exactly know where it's going, and I think locally we don't really know the impact. And I have to say, I don't think I know the impact on my community. That is what this is about, to find out what really is needed, what really is going on. We may not know exactly what is going on, but we know from a lot of evidence what the result of families in crisis is. The result of families in crisis is domestic abuse very frequently. The result of families in crisis is child poverty. And all of these things are things which damage, which have a cost, which can be lifelong. And that is what we are here. I think it's fair to say that we may have different ways of going about it, but we come to this council out of a sense of duty. We share this collective sense of duty that we are here to serve the community. And I believe what we've done tonight is to serve the community. And I really do welcome what's been said. And the really, I don't want to overuse the word harmonious, the collegiate spirit which has been shown tonight.
Councillor David.
Welfare benefits are my bread and butter. I fill them in, the forms in on a daily basis. And my biggest fear, which is what happened with the pension credit rollout, is that people that don't meet the criteria get their hopes up, get on the phone, get onto the Citizens Advice Bureau and every other welfare support organisation, thinking that they are going to qualify. Both Jodie and Jackie said the benefits that are there for the taking. Yes, if you meet the criteria. I can sit for an hour and a half filling in an attendance allowance form for someone who doesn't have the health issues, but because they've been told it's their right to apply for it, they assume they're going to qualify for it, and then they don't passport into any of the other benefits. No housing benefit, no council tax benefit, nothing. And that hard-working support worker has spent a lot of time trying to explain to someone that I'm really sorry, but somebody else said I would get this. The people that we fill in attendance allowance forms for need to have care needs. They don't need a carer, you're right. They need to have care needs. Disability benefits, they need to have a disability. They need to have daily living needs, mobility difficulties for them to qualify. It's not easy filling in these forms, especially for someone who isn't going to qualify for the benefit, but we still fill them in because that's what they want. So my fear is us having this networking session with all the agencies and all the rest of it, and they're all going to say the same as what I'm saying. When you do it on a daily basis, you can't disappoint people by saying, sorry, but you're not going to get this. You can't allow people to think they can maximise their income by qualifying for a disability benefit because they haven't got a disability. So using attendance allowance, other disability and sickness benefits as a way of maximising people's income is wrong if they don't meet the criteria to qualify for it. So we need to be realistic. If we are going to network and tell people there are millions of pounds worth of benefits out there, we also need to be realistic and make sure that they know there is a possibility. If they haven't got a health issue, if they haven't got care needs, if they haven't got mobility difficulties, they may not qualify for those benefits, and therefore they may not be passported into the other benefits.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. Anyone else like to say? Councillor Simpson?
Just very quickly.
Simmons, sorry.
That's all right. I think there's Councillor Parsons said he was, wanted to use this as a way of understanding what the needs were in the community. I think quite a lot of us have seen that come through quite prevalent over the last few months, and beyond that, back into when we were heavily into the COVID pandemic. One of the things that I'm, as part of this multi-agency group or whatever that might look like, and all the partners, is including people who are on the floor within their communities. For example, in Coleshill, there's the hub. They do that. They fulfil this service that you're talking about already. People go there and they have their forms filled in. They talk to them, but they also have that measured and balanced approach because they're used to filling them in, where they're saying to people, why, how you've been referred here, or whatever. It's signposting. It's making sure we know what the criteria is. And I think part of the information session for me is about understanding what is available and what the criteria are, because sometimes people come to me and go, can I get that? And I say, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I know a basic overview of a lot of benefits and grants that are available. But actually, I think it would upskill us all. And I think that that's quite important, so that we go out with a measured approach, perhaps, so that we don't bring people's hopes up, because that's even harder for people to cope with.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Anyone else wish to speak? In which case, are we going to go with the vote?
Councillor Gosling.
Yeah, Councillor Gosling.
Just to be clear, at no point will we advocating benefit fraud or going into a benefit situation in order to claim a disability you don't have. Part of it, as we've already alluded to, is to make sure we've got our facts straight, to make sure. Now there is, and that's government statistics, 15 billion potential unclaimed benefits. There are those people, those statistics are from government statistics from the Office of National Security. Statistics. They are the real statistics. Those people are out there. And we've all got them on our caseloads. We've all got those people who don't think they're entitled to more. Those people who are struggling. I've got a lady here that I was going to talk about that I met in Harthill, a wonderful lady. She's surviving on £312 a month. She says it's just about enough, providing she only goes shopping in Nuneaton, although now they've stopped the return fares. So now instead of it being £8.20 for a ticket, it's £16.40. So providing she doesn't turn the radiators on upstairs, providing she only uses the stove 3 times a day. So it's got all of these providings with them. This lady is entitled to more, and she will be going through the financial inclusion services to maximise their income. And we are dealing with that and obviously taking on that caseload. Anybody with £16.40, which is the return cost of a bus to Arley and to Ansley and to there, is not coming to Atherstone for the food bank. They're just not. If you've got £16.40 in the shop, they're going to go to the co-op, and then they're going to wait till the £16.40 is gone, and then they're in trouble. I know there are thousands of other services out there. Part of the reason for wanting to do this is because despite those services, despite all of those charities and those amazing people putting in so much effort, that poverty is still persisting. We are still missing all those people. Those statistics are still there. We are failing to engage with the right people, or they're failing to engage with us. We need to be more than a click on a website. We need to be there in person, directing people with a clear view of what they're entitled to, what's available, so that we can do that. There are places like the Hub in Coleshill, but that's patchy. It's not consistent. We need to know where that's not consistent and where we need to plug those gaps. That's one of the reasons why we would like multi-agencies, people on board to say, okay, CAB is available in that area, that's available in that area. What's available over here? Where do we need to fill those gaps? Where do we need to catch the people who are falling through the nets? And we absolutely give credit to you tonight for kind of stepping up with us. We understand brutally that the impact of poverty is one of the biggest, nastiest issues that you'll ever have to face. It is damaging to the core of our families, to the core of our residences. It threatens not only their health, their well-being, ambition, outcomes for their very lives. Our residents, it affects their children, it dampens their ambition. It takes away their will to get up and do it again tomorrow. This really does strip people of their dignity, of their souls, of their lives that they need to carry on. And it's really hard standing here with almost heat stroke after being outdoors all day on a hot summer day, the day after summer solstice, thinking about winter. But winter is coming, and it is going to be harsh on our residents if we don't step up to do something about it. So I'm delighted that this council has joined me in proposing this motion and taking this forward. This needs to be a meeting, conference, whatever. This needs to be something which ends in outcomes, a clear pathway to take our residents forwards to a happier, better place, so that we can all have a very happy Christmas, warm and safe, knowing that we've done everything that we can to protect our children, to protect our families and protect our residents of North Warwickshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cotter. So take it to the vote for the present motion with the meeting change from conference to meeting. So can I have a seconder for that? Well, you proposed that. Yeah. Can I have a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Power. All those in favour of the present?
Sorry.
I lost track then.
Oh, right. So
It's the amended motion as I read out at the start of the session after we came back. So it's the
first just changing the conference word to meeting. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Yeah. So it's just that one word.
Yeah, so just put that to.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll try again. All those in. Sorry. Yeah.
It wasn't just the words that were different. It was that we took a paragraph from the amendment and then kept one of our paragraphs. Is that understood?
Is there any way you could read that?
Right. Okay. Well,
so to repeat what we said at the start when we came back after the adjournment, he said just trying for time. So the amendment. So the motion is as follows now. This council recognises the good work being undertaken by North Warwickshire Council and its partners in respect of the increased cost of living and its impact on the well-being and quality of life for many of our residents, and in particular our lower-income households. In order to respond to the crisis, we propose that the Borough Council establish an all-party working group and convene a multi-agency meeting to examine what steps can be taken to help residents, to coordinate our approach and to prevent harm to our most vulnerable residents. And that's been moved and seconded.
Yeah. Okay. Right. All those in favour? Okay, agreed. Okay. Right. Moving on. Okay, item 14, exclusion of the public and press, to consider whether in accordance with section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A to the Act. Can I have all those in favour?
I'll second it.
Okay, yeah, fine. Okay.